Hey there, a special shout out to all of you who support this podcast by buying us a cup of coffee, read the newsletter, and listen to the shows. We couldn't have made it to season 11 without you, so thank you. And if you want to continue supporting this show, help us keep the lights on, the internet running, our coffee cups full, and helping keep us motivated to keep going, keep interviewing, keep sharing content, please click the Buy Us a Coffee link in this podcast's show notes. Thank you. Now, on to the show. Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Season 11, Episode 2 of the Coffee People Podcast, which is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network and presented by Roastery Coffee Packaging. Link in the show notes. I'm Ryan Woldt, and this is the show where we meet and chat and get behind-the-scenes coffee industry stories from other cool people. We chat with roasters, baristas, green coffee importers. We get the lowdown from trip organizers, farmers, scientists, artists, writers, activists. The list goes on. Today, we're digging into it with multi-hyphenate Nicole Diefenbach, who has her own company, Roam Bravely, and also works with Unravel merchants and Tableau coffee roasters as a Sourceress, a fun play on coffee words, and as a certified SCA sustainability professional with a focus on regenerative agriculture. You'll see links to all of those companies in this show's podcast notes, as well as in our newsletter on coffeepeoplepodcast.com. Nicole's path into specialty coffee is unique and inspiring. I'm looking forward to sharing it while I drink this French press roasted coffee from Kenya. It's from one of our industry partners and friend, Chris at Coffee Cycle Roasting in San Diego, California. They've got some big news about a new shop in the works that we'll be sure to share with you in the near future. So wherever you are, I hope you're pouring coffee into your favorite mug, maybe the one with the cat on it or the funny saying. Or perhaps you're smiling and waving as you collect your latte from the barista at your favorite local roaster. Because it is time for this Coffee People conversation with Denver-based Nicole Diefenbach, whose role in coffee is seemingly without end. Here we go.
I am Nicole Diefenbach. I primarily work as a sustainability consultant for 3 different brands, hence the many different companies I represent. The first is mine, which is Roam Bravely. So I do my consulting through there, as well as lead primarily buyers, but consumers and specialty coffee people to El Salvador to visit a producer partner I work closely with named Carlos Pola. And then under Unravel Merchants, I facilitate connections between coffee producers and green buyers, primarily in North America, again with Carlos in El Salvador, but also with Steve Holt and Ashnafi Arga of Ethiopia. So we definitely specialize in co-production as well as facilitate export and import as a part of our services, but we really try to focus on the production level, because there's a lot of people doing lots of export import. So that's how we're differentiating ourselves. And then on the consumer side, I work with Tableau Coffee Roasters based here in Denver, Colorado. We are a specialty coffee sister company to an heirloom grain bakery called Hearth. They specialize in heirloom grain sourdough primarily, as well as pastries and things like that, with the focus on the farmer as well. So the owner, Matt Quinlisk, wanted to develop a coffee program that matched the same sourcing ethos of the grain side. And so my husband, Kevin Mayberry, joined as a coffee director, and then I joined on when they were opening their first shop. And now we manage the coffee company together, and we opened our first shop in January in Southeast Denver.
And I actually got to visit that shop when I was in town last time. Anyone who listens to the show, we've spoken about Tableau before and just their excellent design and kind of the care they put into their products. Pretty impressive and noticeable, I mean, even from the outside. I have so many questions to ask you today, but I want to get started with probably the most important one, and the one that I'll judge you on later, which is, what's your favorite Keanu Reeves movie?
Definitely the fourth Matrix. No, I'm totally kidding. I do think it's the Matrix, though. OG Matrix.
The original Matrix is 25 this year. I just saw that somewhere. That's pretty
Oh,
insane.
wow.
Which makes sense because I remember going and seeing it in high school. I have this weird belief that Keanu Reeves is both the single best and single worst actor of all time, but also probably the best human being of all time.
Hmm.
So, backstory about Nicole, coffee specifically.
Coffee.
Do
Hmm.
you have a memory or do you have a first experience with coffee that kind of stands out that made you notice it or think, oh, this is interesting, or this is something that, touched your life in retrospect?
Yes, I would say I have two of those moments. One in childhood. My dad was a firefighter in the military, so he was home every 24 hours, 24 hours on, 24 hours off. I always knew it was an off day because I'd wake up smelling coffee. And so, first associations, very, very young. Positive association, yay, love and coffee and family. The second would have been the first time I walked on a farm.
Coffee farm.
A coffee farm, yes. The first time I walked on a coffee farm and touched the trees and saw the cherries and the diversity and all the animals, that was my aha moment as an adult where I was like, oh, this is special.
It is a unique moment because it's not that you don't know it practically, but seeing it makes understanding where all those bags on the shelf come from. If you're, in a grocery or at a roaster or somewhere, someone actually had to do that work. And I think we get disconnected from that when we're just walking through and throwing things in the grocery cart or wherever we're shopping.
Yeah, exactly. The moment that I realized people grew coffee was at Bird Rock, OG Bird Rock. And they used to have the batch where you kind of just do your own batch and they would charge you as you go. And they would always put the producer names on there as well as like intro. This is what coffee could taste like. And this was, a decade ago. But that was the first, like as a consumer, I was like, what do you mean people grow coffee? This is this is interesting.
That's how I felt when I learned that the coffee was actually in a fruit. Like
Hmm.
the coffee bean is actually the seed of the cherry, and that was just mind bending for me at first. So then you were on a coffee farm, so I'm assuming there was some connection to coffee at some point. But how did you work your way into the coffee industry? Were you doing anything else before you kind of found your way to where you are now?
Yeah, so professional background, international business development. Different industries along my career. When I was living in California, I worked in the surf industry, but it's essentially opening markets for different products. So in 2017, I moved to El Salvador and lived on a coffee farm and was in a professional pause. I kind of like quit my California life and was like, let's just take a beat. And that's when I fell in love, like on the farm level, and had a lot of conversations with roasters, with importer friends that I knew, with the producers that I was meeting, and really just learning for about 6 months of pain points and learning about the industry as a whole because I only understood it as a consumer. And I asked Carlos if he needed help, and he was like, "Yeah, I could, use some buyers in North America." And I was like, okay, I've never worked for an importer. I don't know anything about global logistics. Let's try. And now we're in our seventh year importing into North America. And for the most part, all of our buyers that ever buy from us stay on, which is really difficult to do when you're working with small roasters. But yeah, it's very much inspired by their needs, producing country, producing community needs, and working reverse engineering it from there.
How did you end up choosing El Salvador and ending up on a coffee farm in the first place if you're taking kind of a life break?
Yeah, excellent question. My husband worked for a shop turned roastery in San Diego, and his coffee director, Nanelle Newbaum, her husband, Andy, owned Torque Coffee, and they started Barefoot Coffee Roasters a long time ago in Northern California. So it was very much their values and ethos that they infused into Kevin, including partnerships in El Salvador. So there was a producer partner they knew. He, in like, gosh, how old were we then? Late 20s, early 30s, went to an internship with a coffee producer in El Salvador, came back to San Diego. Again, I did not work in the coffee at the time. And he was like, Nick, you have to go to El Salvador. You're going to love it. Because we surfed. So like we would take surf trips down to Baja, and we enjoyed driving and traveling and being in the tropics. And then I was like, okay, El Salvador, let's just quit our entire California life and move to El Salvador, because we were both just like feeling that time of life. And so I spent that was January 2017. I spent the rest of that year just kind of selling everything we owned. We bought a 2001 Toyota Sienna and drove to El Salvador with our 2 Siberian Huskies.
Wow.
And El Salvador is a really small community, or a really small country, even smaller if you're in coffee. So you just need to know like 2 people in coffee, and then the community is beautiful and they take care of you. But that's why El Salvador, that's how we ended up on a coffee farm. And I participated in my first harvest in honey processing on a baby teeny farm. And so stirring like honey with my hands every morning and just having my alarm set to like check the beds and participate on that level was extremely impactful. And like seeing the amount of work that goes into that, I was just like, how do I support this? Because I think if more people knew, they would never not know who grew their coffee.
They wouldn't take it for granted. It's amazing how a seed, I don't want to fall too far down into a farming metaphorical rabbit hole here, but
please do.
It's amazing how the seed of one conversation can take root and it changes your whole life. You know, in this case, somebody mentioned to you how much you would like El Salvador and their stories about it. You were at a point in your life where that was something that appealed to you. And the next thing you know, you're living, you talk about it took a year to sell your stuff and then move down and all this stuff. But like, that's a really quick timeline when you really think about changing your life.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think is true of all people, but some people take that next step and some people step back and go on in a different, they maybe double down on where they're at, and it's just a different choice. When I was researching you have 2 titles that I wrote down. One is Certified SCA Sustainability Professional. I want to ask about how you get certified as a sustainability professional. The second one is, I think, Sourceress. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's also a professional licensed title. So I'm going to let you describe how you get both of those titles. And what does that mean to be a sustainability professional? It's such a buzzword.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with Sourceress because that's the shorter story, in that because I was not a part of the industry when I started working in it, in the sense that like I had all of these colleagues on the global north side. I had trader friends. I wasn't trading because I was only representing the coffee from Carlos at the time. And sourcing just seemed like the correct title as far as trying to boil it down to one word. Because I am a proud female in coffee and I'm a huge nerd, I just had to like play with it a little bit, and I wrote Sourceress. And of the people who get it, or they'll see that and they comment on it, I'm like, this is how I know we're going to be clients. Like, this is how I qualify my clients. You either get it or you don't get it. So that's the Sourceress side, just to represent a female in coffee, and a title of position in the supply chain that I didn't feel great about all the titles that existed. So yeah, made that one up. To be a Specialty Coffee Association certified sustainability professional took about 2 years. It is a track in the SCA courses like barista, roaster. It's one of those tracks now. When I joined, it was a unique situation in 2020 where it was 2020 and it was March of 2020 and we didn't know what we were doing. And fortunate enough for me, the 4 creators of the course came together to offer the foundation level. There are 3 levels: foundation, intermediate, and professional. And oftentimes those are taken in person. There's a cost of entry for the education itself. There's cost for staying and flying and traveling and all of these things. So I got to negate a lot of that and get the foundation level online only. It was amazing and beautiful because there was people from all over the world that joined, and we got all 4 creators, and typically they teach sometimes in pairs, but typically on their own under their like respective nonprofits or education consulting, what have you. So after foundation, it just felt like this missing piece of information that I really needed in order to move forward in the ways that I was already feeling called to, which was providing on the producing community level. So making sure that like societal branch was taken care of. The environmental is typically what people think of automatically when they hear sustainability. And then the third pillar that they teach on is economic, because as we know, as much as we want to do business for good, or that's what we're trying to do business for good, that economic piece needs to be there in order for that redistribution of wealth to happen along the supply chain. So it was just speaking to all of these things I was already excited about, and the foundation level gave, exactly as it sounds, a foundation of sustainability specifically in specialty coffee. So not coffee as an entire industry, but what we can do and the blind spots we might have, and I suppose a systems thinking in order to address issues as they come up. And again, throughout the entire supply chain, not just focused on producing, not just focused on like staff and baristas. There's a huge supply chain. Intermediate, you have to be invited to, as well as professional. So again, I was fortunate to be invited to an intermediate level. Again, this is like post 2020, so I feel like all those years went together. But at the end of professional, it was about 2 years to completion. And in intermediate, I again got to take an online class with tons of humans from all over the world, which was really, it offers a more well-rounded perspective just because you're talking to other coffee people in different parts of the supply chain. And then in professional, you actually choose a sustainability project to execute over those few months of time. And you're working really closely with your AST, which is the teacher. And you are really pushed to use the knowledge that you've gained over the last few courses, in addition to like tackling a real world problem. So I developed the definition and indicator points for regenerative coffee within my professional sustainability course.
So it's a lot like taking a graduate program. Like you've gone through kind of the basics, at least in your personal and in your career, and then you get into this kind of intensive, this is what it all means and how you can use it sort of programming, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You just mentioned the word regenerative. I asked a mutual friend of ours what I should ask you, and he said she is like the person to ask about regenerative. I can't even say it. Regenerative agriculture, regenerative coffee. So I'm wondering if you could define that for us and let the audience know what does that even mean before we even talk about the next step of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the same way that sustainability is a huge overarching word, and it can be greenwashed in a sense.
Yeah, I just look past it often until I see there's more, behind it.
Exactly. So in those deeper levels, but at the same time, simple labeling exists, so there can be a level of understanding of like, okay, great. So you don't clear cut forests to grow my coffee sweet. Like there's a baseline of sustainability there. What I wanted to create was, on the consumer side, a level of understanding of like, oh, this is regenerative coffee means this. The same way organic means you did not poison my food. Like basic understanding. At least that's what we're hoping.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to regenerative coffee, what I wanted to do was to protect what it could grow into. So I didn't want it to become another phrase or term used to simply market and greenwash. I wanted it to be both a label of understanding and goodwill, but I also wanted it backed by action, meaning we are hitting the 3 pillars of sustainability as I've learned them through my course. So we're addressing societal, economic, and environmental issues, blockers, problems. We're using the entirety of our supply chain to take bits of profit or funds and bring it together and really impact producing countries as well as programs throughout the supply chain. To be succinct, would it be okay if I just read my definition?
Okay. For sure.
Just because I worked on it. It's really hard. And then another like fun part of this is it was just approved for trademark. So I'll be able to...
The term regenerative coffee?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Congrats.
Thank you so much. And so again, I just want to use it to create verifiable change. As in like a lot of specialty coffee roasters, for example, were like, this is what we want to do with like $1 per bag or whatever. And you trust us at face value. I am now working with a traceability platform called Bex 360 to really track all of the life cycle of the coffee, including all the way to the consumer, in order for this to become verifiable data for regenerative coffee, making it easier for anyone to participate. I digress. So regenerative coffee replants forests, restores watersheds, promotes biodiversity, and fosters thriving communities. Regenerative coffee is grown according to holistic land management practices that rebuild soil, organic matter, and restore degraded soil biodiversity. Regenerative coffee results in both carbon drawdown and improvement in the water cycle. These practices increase crop yields, generating higher living incomes for farm workers and producers. By restoring coffee lands located at the highest elevation, everyone benefits. Every town, near and far, can revel in the impact of restoration through reduced flooding, clean water sources, and prospering land. What affects one affects all. With increased incomes and healthier environments, communities have broader access to greater health services, basic resources, and education. Regenerative coffee prioritizes socioeconomic equity by supporting the inclusion of women, Indigenous, and underrepresented people as they build diversity into the coffee supply chain and positively affect their local and global communities.
There's a broad definition there, but I just for my own understanding and maybe somebody listening, on the farm side of that, it's essentially you care about the health of the soil. It's not necessarily just about we're going to get as much product out as we can. We're thinking 2, 3, 4, 7, 10 generations ahead of how this soil is going to recuperate and provide continually, which coincidentally also helps maximize its value in the long run. And then on top of that, you're adding kind of that same concept to the people that are working the soil. Like it's not just about the regenerative part. You're also regenerating, opportunities and making sure that the people that are taking care of it are also being taken care of. Is that a good way to say it?
Absolutely. And again, we don't want to focus just on the producing country because there's a lot of inequity throughout the supply chain, but for the purposes of starting at the beginning, that is absolutely correct. And regenerative agriculture is a growing movement in the United States, as well as we've seen monoculture ruin our land. And
I would say create the Dust Bowl, right?
Yes, exactly.
The idea that you're growing roots further down and, collecting water from deeper levels and,
Hmm.
my experience previously with the concept of regenerative agriculture is with the Kernza plant. I think
Okay.
it's it's called, which is kind of like a grain, and it's being used now to kind of replace other grains because its root system goes down 8, 10, 15 feet and keeps growing, and so it's better for water usage and all these other things. I only know it because a few years ago Patagonia used it to make beer, and that was pretty exciting for
Oh,
me.
nice. Yes, they're definitely a leader in supporting regenerative agriculture on the whole.
I can tell that you're very proud of this work that you've done, and even this definition. I can see you smiling as you're reading it. Uh, how has this impacted what you're doing with Roam Bravely and Tablown and your other coffee work with Unravel Merchants? How has it changed how you view your job?
I think that from the outset, I had this in mind, but to be able to have a framework around what we're contributing to has helped me focus. I don't know anyone else who's worked in coffee, but there's lots of things to pay attention to. And just, I knew the more I got into it, like I love drinking coffee. I am not a barista. Mad respect for all baristas, but that the more I learned about coffee as a whole, the more this particular niche and intersection of how what we are already doing can just be tweaked a little to really contribute to a regenerative economy, really. But through all three companies that I work through, there is a focus on like our contribution. Like, why are we working? Why are we making money? Well, we want to keep drinking coffee in 25 years. So there's a big motivation, but also we know that we have a huge opportunity to create an example that can be replicated in other markets, but even just in coffee buying in general. If I can only, I've seen what working with one producer and hyper focusing on a producing community and how that impacts them. And if that's all I ever do is impact this one producing country in El Salvador and see prosperity and professionalism and transportable skills and a forest that coffee comes out of, like totally satisfied. But as I mentioned, that label or that word or phrase helps people understand and helps them buy into it as well. Like, oh, I can buy regenerative coffee instead of like degradation coffee. Cool, let's buy some regenerative coffee.
Is that kind of the goal with the trademark, is to turn this into a certification sort of system? I mean, I have thoughts on certifications generally, but
Me
am
too.
I jumping too far ahead? Uh,
No,
is
you're
that
not. I
part
think
of it?
it answers the like, what's the future? Because that is part of it in the sense of I would like it to function as a certification. I would not like the burden of certification to be put on the producer. I do not know how that works yet.
Well, let's brainstorm for everyone. Okay. Uh, Somebody buys the coffee and they pay for the right to add the certification if they choose, but they don't have to. That'd be
Mm-hmm.
like step one for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get really excited about these kind of concepts.
Oh, yes, please, let's go.
We might have to talk off air. Sorry, everyone. I'm wondering a little bit, one of the things that you just mentioned was, hyper focus on a farm, on a community, on a coffee
Mm-hmm.
farming community. With the different roles that you have, do you also take that focus occasionally and go looking for coffee elsewhere or looking for other communities that are trying to do similar things? Or is that something that hasn't come up yet, or the bandwidth hasn't been there yet?
Yeah. So in 2018, I spread far and wide with the coffee producers that I knew, more so because I wanted to be able to replicate what I was starting with Carlos to different coffee producing regions that I was visiting. I understood the need for focus because I do have to develop a market in order to have impact for these other producers. So I sit in a space where I have a book of roasters or buyers who are looking for, let's say at minimum, producer focused. It's specialty coffee, so it's grown through agroforestry, and they want it to be delicious to a certain point. So there are other smallholder producer groups or like more boutique importers that I will recommend for Guatemala, for Costa Rica. Again, with Unravel, I have Ethiopia covered, but it's more of a let's introduce you to who I know. And then on the Tablon side, we also have the opportunity to buy from different producers, which is great. So as that's slowly grown over the last couple years, we want to go deeper in the producer relationships that we already have, which I had mentioned. But without being able to command 600 containers a year, I really had to just be like, okay, I can build 3 containers. And that covers the beautiful agricultural work that Carlos is doing, and he's producing a little bit more coffee every year. I know that if I could figure out how to make it work with just his farm, then I'd be able to grow. So we do have another producer partner in El Salvador, which is Los Naranjos Cafe Group. And we've consolidated like a handful of coffees with them over the years, and we plan to go bigger with them this year and into the future, as well as the restorations from Roya in 2012. There are a lot of abandoned coffee farms in El Salvador, but the ones that have really focused on restoration are starting to get into like a sweet spot of production. So by only focusing on El Salvador, like as much as I want to spread my wings and help everyone, that's not really realistic too. Like building a system that can work. And what I see is something that, again, having that structure or system that can be replicated, and we can hand the tools to the women in Costa Rica that I work with, or hand those tools off, to producers in Thailand or whomever, but people who are invested in their community as much as I am in El Salvador.
Sure. You mentioned earlier that you lived in San Diego and you take surf trips. How's the surf in Denver these days? I don't mean
it's great. Are you serious?
at the reservoir there?
I can slowly float down the river, and sometimes I get bumped, and it's very exciting.
The Cherry Creek River when it's running.
Exactly, especially after like the snow melt. Just put on a wetsuit and go for it.
Which the reason I kind of make that joke is just you find yourself in a place that's obviously not around surf and things that are important to you. Obviously, I see this beautiful photo print behind you of the ocean and the sunset and coffee farming and all these little things. How did you find yourself in the Denver area and using that as your home base?
So after El Salvador, I just wasn't ready to go back to California life. Colorado I have lived all over the United States. Colorado is a remaining state that I was curious about. And my husband found a job here. We had never visited, never moved, landed here, still living in the van with the Huskies. And the coffee community of Denver embraced us. I couldn't have chosen a better coffee community to iterate like an equitable trade model in. Everything about this community and the one in El Salvador are the reason that I have a job now. They've really, really shown up and supported me and the greater vision this whole time. So
I didn't realize you had 2 Huskies in the van with you. That is a tight fit. Oh my goodness.
My husband is 6'2" as well.
Here's my next question then, which I also find to be a weird truth in the world, but do you think coffee tastes better or worse when you're camping?
Ooh. So better because I'm in nature, and nature is my why for life. It's why I love coffee farms. It's why I drove to El Salvador. It's why I live in Colorado still. I mean, it's a beautiful side piece of just nature and animals. At 6 a.m, hand grinding, AeroPress, a mess. I could break down how it was inaccurately extracted. But I try to leave all of that behind and just be like, look at the trees and this beautiful cup of coffee. And that's it. And I think that bias that comes with being a coffee professional, like I don't really need that when I'm out in nature and I'm camping or on the farm, or it's kind of to go from like, I need this grinder at this setting to taste my coffees and calibrate them, and like I need no music and no one, just like so specific of how you need to taste it. But then it's important, I mean, regardless of what part of the supply chain you work in, but like, do you enjoy it? Are you enjoying your cup of coffee? Yes. Okay, great.
It lends to the greater concept that coffee is a product, and we need to be aware of it, and we need to be aware of how it's grown and where it comes from and the people behind it. On the consumer side, it's also this experience, and it's what keeps us coming back day after day after day. I've heard rumors that there's some addictive nature to caffeine, but I don't believe that.
Nah.
I'm not a doctor, if you're listening. You've been doing this new career for several years now, and through a very transitionary period in the world, not just for you. What is something you've learned? Have you taken anything away from this that kind of surprised you or made you go, oh, wow, this is not the viewpoint I was expecting to have? We could also rephrase it to say, what's a piece of advice that you would pass along based on your experience over the last few years?
Ooh, I think I can answer both of those questions. The first is something I quote quite often because it's impactful. Once on a farm in Guatemala, a producer turned to me and he says, there are 100 lessons you will learn in coffee, and you will only learn one a year. And I was like, okay. And then as I continue to work, I was like, you're totally right. There's just so much to learn, which is what keeps me coming back, because there is always something to learn. I think the most surprising thing I've discovered in coffee is the power of collaboration and community. I've worked in other industries and they are not as collaborative or community focused. So through the hardships of a global pandemic and managing global logistics, I don't recommend, by the way, it's extremely difficult, and there's nothing that gets you through it besides the other people that you're working with. My clients and buyers and just everyone along the supply chain that I work with. Carlos was a huge voice of reason in 2020. At that point, I did not have a finance partner, so all of my buyers were financing their coffee themselves, and everyone shut down. And so we're about to export, and I was like, Carlos, like, all of the roasters are shut down. Like, they are shut down. We don't know what's going on. And he was just like, Nicole, this is either the end of the world as we know it, or we're going to get through this. And I was like, you're totally right. Okay, I'm just gonna calm down. He's a very wise man.
And I wish I would have had a Carlos.
Yeah. He's like a rogue coffee producer who's like a engineer, philosopher. He's another fascinating human to talk to if you need one. So.
That is all farmers I have ever met. And I have farmers in my family, and I find that to be a beautiful description of them, because one, they are constantly confronted with problems that they have to fix in the moment on their own, usually, that span the scope of engineering challenges on a farm, whether it's equipment or logistics or whatever. And two, they have a lot of time while they're doing things to think. And as they're staring out at the land, or, sitting on a tractor, or doing whatever it might be that they're doing, picking cherries off a tree.
Yep.
I love that definition. I'm going to write that down and pass it along. Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you want people to know about the work you're doing, or about you?
I feel like just stay tuned, because it's just the beginning.
All right. Well, when I when I'm passing through Denver and I run into you in some random coffee shop, what are you going to be ordering that day?
Ooh, random coffee shop?
Yep, not one
Cortado?
you can't go in and like say I get my regular here. Like if you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
stopped in a coffee shop on your travels, what do you order?
Random is a cortado every time. Cow milk.
Nicole, I'm more interested in the work you're doing now than I even was when I was researching, which is, I think, saying something. One, about our conversation, and two, just about the coolness of the concept and how it impacts us. And I really appreciate you coming to chat with me about it and share.
Yes, thank you so much. I might have to request an interview back as we flesh out the regenerative coffee certification.
We can do that. Also, I apologize. I don't know if you heard the dog snoring in the background.
No, I didn't.
He's really loud. He is out. So I'm
So
gonna have
you
to
did a
give him
good
a little
job with the heating pad. He must be super comfortable.
Okay, some key takeaways from the podcast. Nicole was kind enough to share her written description of regenerative agriculture, as she has applied it to coffee farming with me, and I'll in turn share it with you in our newsletter on coffeepeoplepodcast.com. Sustainability is a big word, and Nicole is using her experience in business development and education through SCA to help guide multiple companies, including her own, through finding better ways at growing and sourcing coffee. It is easy to be disconnected from the fact that there are human beings actually growing, picking, and processing coffee long before it lands in the hands of our favorite roasters. I can't say I think about that every time I grab a bag off the shelf. That burst of awareness struck Nicole after experiencing coffee at the farm level during what we could call a professional pause. Her pause turned into a new track in her life and into a new career where she focuses on bettering coffee as we know it. Sustainability is a huge term and can, fairly easily, be co-opted by greenwashing efforts. Nicole is trying to offset that by imbuing the term regenerative agriculture with some power by defining it as it applies to environmental, ecological, and societal impacts at the farming level of coffee. She believes the phrase, if accurately representing the efforts at the farm, can be used to create change, verifiable change, because what affects one affects all. Despite what I would call a natural urge to take her efforts at spreading the word about regenerative agriculture far and wide, Nicole has kept her focus narrow, specifically on the coffee-growing communities of El Salvador, which allows her to both enact change and fine-tune the toolbox so that those tools she's developing, those descriptors and lessons learned, will be able to be passed off to other coffee farming communities around the world in a much more polished and ultimately more effective package. She's going big by staying narrow. It's an insightful decision to make. Finally, if you listen to that whole show, you can probably tell I was definitely sick during that recording. I'm better now. Thanks for asking. I'll share all of the important links, including roambravely.com and unravelmerchants.com, in our newsletter. You can sign up to get yours weekly on coffeepeoplepodcast.com. You could also just visit it occasionally, bookmark it. You won't regret it. Better yet, go check it out and then share it with your friends and family. And consider supporting this podcast by buying us a cup of coffee. Details in this show's podcast notes. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, we'd appreciate if you'd take a second to tap the follow button and review this show. 5 stars is obviously great. But honestly, all feedback is good feedback, and this show is truly a collaborative effort with our listeners, guests, and partners, including our podcast's presenting sponsor, Roastar Coffee Packaging, found at roastar.com. They'll help you tell the big story of your small business with the right coffee packaging to best represent your brand. That's roastar.com. We're also supported by some great coffee industry partners. Our legacy partners include Zumbar Coffee and Tea, Steady State Roasting, Coffee Cycle Roasting, Maria Coffee, and Cape Horn Green Coffee Importers. A special thanks to Alden at Crossings Coffee and the Hales brothers at SCA Coffee Source Green Coffee Importers, who've been specifically supporting our Coffee Smarter education efforts. Our full city partners include Ignite Coffee Company, Ascend Coffee Roasters, Civets Roasting Machines, Me and My Uncle Coffee, Craft 42 Coffee Roasters, and Cozy Canine Coffee. All of those links are on our website, in the newsletter, on the show notes. They're great companies to follow and support. Thank you for listening, for sharing this podcast, asking questions, and being coffee curious. This show, the Coffee People Podcast, is part of the Roast West Coast Coffee Network. This episode has been written, produced, researched, and recorded by me, Ryan Woldt. I hope this episode has found you happy, healthy, and with at least a thread of sanity left, enabling you to make it through the day. Always tip your baristas, and be sure to drink good coffee. If you are in the early stages of your coffee journey, we want to support you. Check out the Coffee Smarter Education podcasts. Coffee Smarter is designed to enable coffee drinkers to brew a better cup of coffee at home. And Coffee Smarter Pro covers industry-specific topics for baristas, roasters, shop owners, and aspiring coffee professionals. You'll find both shows on your favorite podcast platforms or on our website at coffeesmarterpodcast.com.